Alrighty, so a little bit of a different one here, but the Grudge of Edinburgh movie came out yesterday, the part one of it at least. So I'm recording this the day of it coming out, but as I'll put this out tomorrow. So came out yesterday. If you haven't seen it yet, I would definitely recommend it if you actually enjoy the Seven Deadly Sins because it was pretty enjoyable overall. I know a lot of people that were super skeptical about the CGI and everything, and I have to say the CGI is not bad. I do like the design of all the characters and everything. I think it looks really good. Unfortunately, there's like some weird, I guess, like frame rate issues. Like it just looks like the animation is like capped at like 15 FPS or whatever. So there's some weird, you can tell like the animations aren't very fluid in a lot of scenarios, which is a little unfortunate. But overall, the characters, like the quality looks good, but the frame rate, it definitely is a bit odd. Not really sure why they didn't just either, I don't know, add more frames to it or smooth it out somehow. I'm not really sure on that one. Maybe, I don't know I don't know what the budget is for this, but Seven Deadly Sins is pretty popular, so I would think that it would be halfway decent. But I I have created a slideshow in Photoshop for you because I just wanted to talk about some of the I guess a little bit about the movie and more about the characters in the movie that could potentially come to Grand Cross at some point. If you don't know, they did do a Prisoners of the Sky sort of side story in the game at some point. And we got Elat and Belion, which were the only two characters to ever come out of that, which was pretty odd, I've got to say. And this was only part one of the movie, so I don't know, obviously there's going to be a part two with a little bit more action, excitement, a little, maybe, I don't know. But I wanted to talk about the main two characters, which are Tristan, of course, and Lancelot. And little bit of a spoiler, I guess. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch that first, maybe. But I have screenshots of some of the different characters doing different moves and stuff like that, and I'll give you overall thoughts and opinions about the movie, I guess. So overall, pretty enjoyable. It's only like 52 and a half minutes long, so it's a little bit under an hour for part one, so I'm not really sure why they didn't just make it like a 2-hour long movie and put both parts together and just not do parts. But altogether, this one's not too bad. First thing we got to go over is this little this little fairy right here. I can't remember. Her name is like Kulamil, I think, and she's just the cutest little thing ever. I don't know what it is about this little fairy, but she's like in love with Tristan from like the first time that he sees her. Very, very funny to me. She's like almost like the hopeless romantic sort of, I guess, just comedy, sort of just like comedic relief throughout the first part, which is, I don't know, pretty funny. It's pretty enjoyable. I think that she's just a cute little fairy. I don't know, nothing too much to that. Obviously, probably not going to get a character, but I thought she was pretty funny. First up, we have the big bad man, which I think you've probably already seen from the trailer of the movie. If you've already seen it, if you've already seen the movie, of course. We have Death Pierce, who has become a huge racist, basically, and he now has a staff of chaos for whatever reason, and he's basically wanting to make a kingdom that is not anything but humans. So he's basically capturing a bunch of giants and fairies and, other races and stuff like that, and basically just, like, using the staff to, like, amalgamate them into, like, one disgusting entity, basically, which is what they kind of fight against towards the end of part one. I don't necessarily think they'll make a character out of him, but maybe. I guess Belion did technically get a character in the first one, so possibly they could make a new Death Pierce unit. And obviously, the thing is, if they split it into different parts, for part one specifically, I can't see them making any other characters besides Tristan and Lancelot, because they're really the only two characters that do any sort of real fighting. So yeah, Death Pierce literally just kind of does his evil thing in the background for, story purposes and everything. So nothing too crazy there. But we get to Tristan. Tristan has a bunch of really cool sort of like goddess type moves because obviously he's half goddess, half demon. And there's like two examples in the movie or in the part one where he sort of kind of starts to transition into the demon sort of like bad man kind of thing going on. But he kind of tries to suppress that as much as possible. So I could see if they did a part one, they could potentially just make like a goddess race Tristan, because obviously, because he's half and half, I really would hate to see them just shove him into the unknown category in the game, because we don't have anything to really support that. Or they could do something like Sigurd, where he is goddess race but counteracts and sort of also works as a demon, maybe. I don't know, that could also be an option, but I would really hate to see him just get lumped into the unknown category. But yeah, he has some really cool moves. I think he uses 3 different moves overall, but I picked these 2 just because they were really, really cool. And the second one is probably going to, I would imagine, be like an ultimate if they made him into a character. But this one's really cool. I think this is Falling Star or Shining Star. I can't remember the exact name. But he basically just creates these giant lights and they fly in and hit all the enemies. Pretty cool. Could definitely see it being like a really neat AoE. He obviously uses full counter. His dad's, pride and joy, his main move, I guess. So I could see him doing, I could see him going one of 2 ways. He could either just be like a goddess, sort of like a, offensive kind of unit where he's using, the attack skills or whatever, but he also heals a couple of times. Like he uses, goddess healing a little bit in the movie as well. So I could see him kind of getting maybe like if they wanted to go as basic as possible, they could give him some sort of like recovery or buff skill or whatever that heals along with full counter, which would just be a super safe option. I really like these goddess type attack skills, so I would rather see them go that way. But honestly, they looked really cool. This is the second move. Honestly, don't remember what the title of this one was because it's in Japanese, but it reminds me of, if you've watched Dragon Ball Super during the Goku Black arc, Trunks does this really cool thing, or I say cool, I don't know, some people don't really like it, but he does this thing where he basically like makes this giant energy sword or whatever and uses that to attack, and it really reminds me of this. But Tristan dual wields little like swords. They're like short swords, and he basically just like imbues them with goddess energy, so they look really, really cool, and he uses those to like do a couple of cool slashes. It doesn't even really defeat the enemy, but I don't know, it's really like, I feel like this one's super like over the top, really cool looking, so I could see them making this into like the ultimate move for sure. And then obviously we have Lancelot, who, I know this is a weird like hazy screenshot, but I just wanted to get one of him shooting this like arrow that he uses to defeat one of the enemies. Not sure exactly, I'm not a big fan of this fairy sort of form that he has. But that might be just a spoiler in of itself, is that he can transform between fairy and human race. But he doesn't really use any like named skills like Tristan does. Like Tristan has a couple of skills where it pulls up the name of it in Japanese on the screen. Lancelot doesn't really have any scenarios like that. So, I mean, he does shoot this one, like, shining arrow while he can't even see the enemy, and it hits his target or whatever, which is pretty cool. And then I could definitely see his ultimate animation, because they're really skeptical about transformation units. This is, like, right at the end of the movie. He basically like transforms into his human self and blows a hole through the big enemy, and you can see that he's like, oh, human Lancelot, like Bond's son, very cool. Because at this point this is the first time in the movie that like Tristan realizes that this is Lancelot. So I don't know, this was a really cool point. I really like his human form. I don't know. I don't know. His just fairy form is like really chunky, and it just doesn't. I don't know. His hair's really dumb looking to me, but I don't know. It's just personal preference, I guess. But human Lancelot, very, very cool. I could definitely see his ultimate animation. Like I could see his regular unit being just fairy race, and then as you build up ultimate move gauge, uses regular like bow skill attacks or whatever. Once you get his ultimate, the ultimate animation itself would be him changing into a human and then hitting the enemy really hard or whatever, kind of like this. So I don't know. That's all I really have, because they don't fight Death Pierce or anything like that in the first part of the movie. I'm not exactly sure when part 2 is supposed to come out, but I thought that overall it was pretty enjoyable. I thought it was a pretty cool movie. If you're into the 7 Deadly Sins, of course, feel free to watch it. It does take place after the main anime, of course, because you're following Tristan's son and everything, and they do show the actual 7 Deadly Sins and everything like that, but I guess in part 1 they're sort of just like doing the call to action, sort of Gother sends out a signal to the other 7 Deadly Sins that aren't at Leonis Castle, and he's like, hey, Elizabeth is now undergoing a curse and she needs our help or whatever. But Tristan and Lancelot are obviously probably going to be taking care of it before they can really do anything. Or I don't know, who knows? Maybe in part 2 they'll show up and save the day because they're just kids. Maybe they get overpowered. Who knows? But either way, thought the characters were kind of cool. Definitely interested to see what Grand Cross does in general after the main anime sort of like story ends. I'm assuming they probably want to go into Four Knights of the Apocalypse stuff and everything, and they've already done the movie side story for the first movie, which isn't even canon, so I could definitely see them doing some sort of cool sort of crossover thing there with the movie and just adding some of the characters and everything. So I don't know, let me know your thoughts and opinions. If you watched the movie, what did you think of it? If you like the characters, I don't know, I'd be interested to see them in the game. So that's it from me. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next one.